Let's look at an example of how the Wendigo will spin false narratives, just deliberately lying outright through their teeth to your face, to the face of the people, using the Odyssey of ancient Greece. And I love the translation by Robert Fagles. I had the opportunity to meet Professor Fagles when I was teaching the Odyssey at West Point. And the suitors, as I've mentioned in my videos about the Wendigo, this devouring spirit. I use the example of the Cyclops devouring, the suitors devouring. We could also look at the Minotaur devouring from ancient Greece. There are examples around the world. The ancient wisdom of the world warns against this devouring spirit. I've made a whole video about the Spirit of Wendigo, a couple videos now. And I use the suitors as an example. The suitors are parasites. They're lounging around, devouring the household of Odysseus. Odysseus' wife, Penelope, and their young son, Telemachus. He's reaching adulthood. He's reaching young manhood. But Telemachus and Penelope together are at their wits' end because they do not feel strong enough to confront the suitors. Later in Book 16 of the Odyssey, we find out there are 108 suitors. So Telemachus and Penelope against 108 trained armed men lounging around in their house. It's like a very large, violent motorcycle gang of 108 armed men devouring their household wealth. So whenever they are confronted, the suitors spin narratives and turn it back on Telemachus and Penelope. The two leaders of the suitors who are given most of the lines for the suitors are Antinous and Eurymachus. So let's take a look at when Telemachus confronts the suitors in Book 2, starting in line 90, Antinous flings it back at Telemachus. He turns it around. Let's take a close look at Antinous' speech that's found in the Odyssey, Book 2, in line 90. Starting in line 90, Antinous says, "So high and mighty, Telemachus, such unbridled rage. Well now, fling your accusations at us? Think to pin the blame on us? You think again. It's not the suitors here who deserve the blame. It's your own dear mother, the matchless queen of cunning. Look here. For 3 years now, getting on to 4, she's played it fast and loose with all of our hearts, building each man's hopes." And then Antinous goes into this story of the weaving of the shroud. So she would weave during the day, and at night she would unweave it. And so Antinous tells that story and says she's so cunning. So then Antinous says, see, it's all her fault, not our fault. And so he finishes by saying, so we will devour your worldly goods and wealth as long as she holds to the course the gods have charted deep within her heart. We'll not go back to our old estates or leave for other parts, not till she weds the Argive man she fancies. She's got to pick one of us and marry us before we leave. So it's not our fault, it's her fault. So Telemachus, he answers back. He says, Antinous, how can I drive my mother from our house against her will? The one who bore me, reared me too. So he appeals to virtue and morality and says, I'm not going to make my mother marry against her will. I'm not going to drive her out of the house. I will never issue that ultimatum to my mother. And you, if you have any shame in your own hearts, speaking to all the suitors and Antinous, their leader, if you have any shame in your own hearts, you must leave my palace. See to your feasting elsewhere. Devour your own possessions, house to house, by turns. Don't blame my mother. While you're waiting for her to make up her mind, if she wants to marry any of you, why don't you go eat your own food? It doesn't excuse you from devouring someone else's wealth. But you see how Antinous turns it against Telemachus and Penelope. And Telemachus, he's not having that narrative. He's reaching manhood, and this is a sign that he will not let that narrative get slathered on top of him. He won't get painted with that brush. He won't let it stick. He says, no, Antinous. And there's something else notable. Look how Antinous insinuates that it's the God's fault as well. He says, it's your own dear mother, the matchless queen of cunning. Look here, we'll devour your worldly goods and wealth as long as she holds to the course the gods have charted deep within her heart. It's the gods who mapped out this cunning plan in her heart. It's their fault. So the Wendigo spirit of devouring, they pretend like they're on the side of virtue, and they blame others, and ultimately they also blame the gods. Later on, we see an even clearer example of just flat out, bald-faced lying by the suitors. And it's a very noteworthy example where Eurymachus is the speaker. Antinous is like the number one leader of the biker gang, and Eurymachus is like the second in command. So Penelope, in book 16, she accuses the suitors of not only devouring the wealth of the household, but also plotting to kill Telemachus. Now that Telemachus is reaching the age of manhood, the suitors want him out of the way. They don't want to wait for Telemachus to get strong enough and get enough friends to be able to challenge the suitors. So Penelope comes down to the hall where the suitors are lounging around devouring the food of the household. And she says, you're disgusting and you're plotting to kill my son. I know it. And Eurymachus says, wise Penelope, daughter of Icarius, courage, disabuse yourself of all these worries now. That man is not alive. He never will be. He never can be born who will lift a hand against Telemachus, your son, not while I walk the land and I can see the light. I tell you this, so help me, it will all come true. In an instant, that man's blood will spurt around my spear. My spear. Since time and again Odysseus dandled me on his knees, the great raider of cities, fed me roasted meat, and held the wine, the red wine, to my lips. So to me your son is the dearest man alive, and I urge the boy to have no fear of death, not from the suitors at least. What comes from the gods, there's no escaping that. So Eurymachus says, look, don't you fear for Telemachus. None of us will harm him. Why, if anybody were to try and harm him, I myself, my spear would be in his chest first. I would defend your son's life with my spear, because when I was just a kid, when I was just a baby, your husband, Odysseus, the father of Telemachus, he used to dandle me on his knee. He used to feed me, he was like a respected leader of the people. And I remember that from when I was a child. There's no way I would let anything come to harm to his son. I'd be the first to defend Telemachus. And the Odyssey says in the very next line, as soon as Eurymachus finishes speaking, end quote, the text itself says, encouraging all the way, but all the while plotting the prince's murder in his mind. So Eurymachus and the rest of the suitors, they are clearly plotting the death of Telemachus. We see it. It's outlined in the story of the Odyssey. They're plotting to kill Telemachus, that they will look Penelope right in the eye and say, oh, Penelope, wise Penelope, looking her right in the eye and lying through his teeth. The Odyssey tells us he's encouraging all the way, but all the while plotting the prince's murder in his mind. That is very telling. And notice in the speech of Eurymachus, he says, no, there's no way. We're here to help. We're not here to harm anybody. Complete lie. And then he says, but what comes from the gods, if any harm comes to Telemachus, blame it on the gods. Wendigo spirit hates the gods. The Wendigo spirit that took over the West and destroyed this ancient wisdom, covered it over, hijacking the texts of the Bible, taking them literally and speaking against the gods, speaking against the ancient wisdom. They hate the gods, but they pretend to be your friend. But really, they are devouring. They are devouring and destroying parasites. The gods hate this behavior. They see this behavior and they condemn it. The goddess Athena appears throughout the Odyssey. She appears to Odysseus, she appears to Telemachus, and she inspires Odysseus throughout his journeys, and she also inspires Telemachus. So in book 1, starting in line 264, Athena comes in disguise and says to Telemachus about the suitors, she says, "How obscenely they lounge and swagger here. Look, gorging in your house. Why, any man of sense who chanced among them would be outraged seeing such behavior." It's disgusting. It's hateful to the gods. Athena sees it and she says it's outrageous. Later, just a little bit further in the Odyssey in book 1, in line 311, Athena, still in disguise, says to Telemachus, "But you, I urge you, think how to drive these suitors from your halls. Come now, listen closely. I have some good advice, if only you will accept it." It's inspiration from the divine realm. The goddess of wisdom is there to give advice to Telemachus if he will listen. If we will listen to that voice from the divine realm, we all have access to it, but we don't all listen to it. Odysseus listens when the goddess Athena talks to him, inspires him. He listens. That's what makes him different. Telemachus listens. So look at what Athena is doing. She's saying, use your mind and start thinking about how to drive these suitors from your halls, and I will give you good advice, divine inspiration. The gods hate this parasitic behavior. In book 2, starting in line 314, Athena again, the goddess again, she comes to Telemachus after he calls a council on Ithaca, the island of Ithaca. And after the council is over, Athena says to Telemachus, "Put them out of your mind, these suitors' schemes and plots. They're madmen, not a shred of sense or decency in the crowd, nor can they glimpse the death and black doom hovering just at their heads to crush them all in one short day." So the gods detest this parasitic behavior. They call it outrageous. It is immoral, and anyone who has sense would be outraged to see such behavior. So the narratives that the suitors try and spin, they do convince some people. But Telemachus is showing that he listens to the gods, and we see the goddess Athena saying, don't be swayed by their narratives. They are outrageous. They are in the wrong. No matter how much they protest that, oh, no, we would never hurt you. We would, it's your mother. It's not us. She's at fault. The goddess Athena says, don't listen to that. Those are false narratives. It's outrageous, and the gods are against them. Any man of sense would be outraged, and you need to think and listen to my good advice. Think about how to drive these suitors from your halls. Let's start using our wisdom here. And also, don't worry. Don't feel overwhelmed. I know you feel overwhelmed right now, but these suitors, their schemes and plots, they're madmen. They don't have a shred of sense or decency among them, and they don't even see the death and black doom that is hovering just at their heads, ready to crush them all in one short day. So there's so much here for us. Notice the pattern of the Wendigo's false narratives. They are against the gods. They are against the ancient wisdom. They try and twist the narrative in their favor. They try and blame others and even blame the gods. They're outrageous. They don't have sense. They don't have decency, and they will come to a bad end. The Odyssey is, of course, it's about Odysseus. It's the Odysseid. But there's parts of it that concern Telemachus that some scholars have labeled the Telemachiad. It's like Telemachus's story, his journey of coming of age, not being sucked into these narratives of others anymore, starting to listen to the gods and follow the virtue and the morality that's laid out by the gods, and not letting these suitors who will lie right to your face, and they sound so convincing sometimes, he won't let them layer their false narratives onto his mind. He won't let those narratives into his mind. He resists them, and he listens to the voice of Athena. That's what we should be taking from these lessons from the Odyssey about the false narratives of the Wendigo. Thank you so much.